Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I want to talk about something which I've wanted to talk about on my channel for quite some time, but it's just never been the right time, if that makes sense. But with the recent issues that have arisen with Doja Cat, it's really prompted me to talk about something important, which is around cancel culture, but also being able to separate the art from the artist and whether that's possible. Now, I see a lot of cancel culture pretty much with every artist or every current artist that has kind of come out in the last few years. With Doja, Beyonce a few weeks ago, Taylor Swift and Kanye West with their ongoing beef, etc. The list goes on. Every other week you'll see someone trending on Twitter and they're cancelled, and then you kind of read what they've done, and a lot of the time, for whatever reason, it's normally some outrage over something that the artist has said or something they've done or been caught doing, but then usually within a week or two, generally people tend to move on. Now, some people could argue the reasons for this cancel culture, and some of it could be considered justified, some of it may not. It is very subjective when it comes to that. But to be factual, there aren't really many artists that are cancelled due to the public. And when I say the public, I mean Twitter, I mean people who actually buy and sell the records, people who follow, etc. Generally, artists aren't cancelled because of that. There are instances, and I'm sure there's plenty, where artists have been cancelled because of media or because of companies and being blacklisted and things. And we hear rumours about certain artists, and whether or not that's the case, we're not sure. But generally, as a general consensus, it's very rare that the public are able to cancel, and I use that in quotes, quote unquote, cancel somebody. And when we talk about cancelling, it's actually removing them from the music industry. It's not selling their records. It's removing them from airplay and unfollowing them, and really kind of denouncing them from that status, celebrity position that they've acquired. It's very rare that happens. If that does happen, generally, it's either because they're the topic for the week, so they've done something like I've said, or they've said something which has caused controversy. So for that particular week or 2 weeks, whilst there's nothing else going on, that is really what the blogs will talk about. It's that person and what they've done. But as I said, in a week or two's time, usually the people move on and something else happens. But more importantly, I want to talk a little bit deeper about that. From recent memory, the most recent artist I can think of that's really been cancelled is R. Kelly. And I think that's for obvious reasons. He's pretty much been scrubbed from music. A lot of the allegations and things like that are ongoing have kind of really made a lot of people take a step back from R. Kelly, people he used to work with or artists he's worked with, fans alike. It just makes people feel a bit weird kind of listening to R. Kelly and his music when they don't really support him as a person and the things that he's allegedly done. Now, it's serious, obviously, when, like I said, artists take a step back, and especially when they start to remove their music. So, again, using R. Kelly as the example, we know that Lady Gaga with Do What You Want took that down from streaming platforms and removed it from her album. Pussycat Dolls, again, did the same thing with Love in the Club. Britney with Outrageous, she took that down. So, a lot of artists will kind of take a step back and think, am I right to be attached to this person from a brand perspective? And that's when it's serious. So like I said, R. Kelly for me is probably the person that I would consider to be quote unquote cancelled most recently when we talk about full cancel culture. Now, in terms of separating the art from the artist, it is a real difficult question to answer, because what you've got to also remember is by you listening to that person, by you streaming that person's music, following them on any social medias, buying anything, you're actually supporting that artist. And we see this a lot, and I just mentioned it around people quote unquote cancelling them, and then in a couple of weeks' time, everything's all forgiven. But during that time, you're still listening to their music, they're still in your playlist, you're still following them on YouTube and on Instagram. So actually, what is it you're saying by your actions versus versus your words? And I think people need to really understand that, because like I said, if you're following somebody, if you're streaming their music, they're still going to get this revenue. And from a company perspective, we know that artists or companies, do like controversial artists, and they always do say, any publicity is good publicity. at the end of the day. So you've got to also understand what message you're sending when you are following this person and streaming their music as well. Ultimately, though, I think it really comes down to your own morals, and I think this is where a lot of people kind of miss the boat. There's certain values and certain morals that I have that I know that if a certain artist was to do or say something, just wouldn't sit well with me and wouldn't sit well with my spirit, and that would be enough for me to kind of take that step back. But ultimately it's really down to kind of you and kind of how you feel about yourselves and the kind of values that you have as well. I'll be honest, with this whole cancel culture, I don't take any notice of it, but I will still listen to the things that have happened, whether it's someone said something or done something, and then really make my own informed decision based on the facts I can see, the response from the artist or the group, and then kind of moving forward from there. And that kind of says to me whether or not someone has changed, and if I'm really willing to continue to support the artist as well. Now, like I mentioned before, there are certain artists who I personally feel have done or said things that I just can't continue to then support them. And I think it's not just mentally affected me as well, it's even physically. When I listen to their music or hear the music, it causes a physical reaction in me that I just don't like, and that tells me within myself that I can't continue to support this person. So probably the two examples for me would be Chris Brown. I know I talk a little bit about Chris Brown on my channel, but for the most part, he hasn't been the same artist for a long time anyway, but that's a completely different topic. But even when I hear Chris Brown's music, certainly for the first few years after the whole Rihanna incident back in 2009, it really put me off. I just couldn't bring myself to even listen to his music. All I could think about and just see Rihanna's face from the news articles and things like that came out. But most recently I do listen to Chris a little bit more, but it's nowhere near the same way that I used to before. I'll still check out some of his stuff, but I'm not checking for him like that. I don't follow him on Instagram or on Facebook or Twitter or anything like that. He's just not my kind of artist, and I think it also impacted his brand. Chris Brown was pretty much touted as the next Michael Jackson when he was a lot younger. Going back to like 2005, 2006. When you think back to then, Chris Brown was kind of being pushed as the next Michael Jackson and the next Usher and those types of people. And he seems to have really faded a lot, not just with his controversy, but because I know there's loads of things that came out about him as well. But due to his mental health and loads of different things that came out around with Chris, and I think it's really impacted his overall brand and really held him back as an artist as well. And obviously the other person for me, as I mentioned before, is R. Kelly. Even now, I can't listen to R. Kelly's music, and I'm not sure if it's because it's still quite fresh. We've known about R. Kelly and some of the alleged things that he's done for years, going back to the 90s. But even now, when I listen to and hear some of the albums or some of his music, I just can't. It just causes a reaction in me that I think, I just don't want to listen to this. And it's a shame, because R. Kelly did a lot for music, certainly in the early 90s and even the late 90s. He worked with loads of artists, he remixed a lot, he's a really good producer, he's a good songwriter. I'm not going to take his kind of accolades away from him. He is good at what he does. I just myself cannot bring myself to listen to his tracks, and I think that's what I was saying at the start of the video. You've got to decide within yourself whether or not you're willing to accept something, and if you're not, then you just don't listen to it, you don't talk about it, you don't follow them. And like I said, it's a shame. Ignition remix, fantastic. The 12 Play album's classic. That reminds me of being a young boy. Listen, I know young boys probably shouldn't listen to that music, but it just takes me back to the 90s and really good memories. So to have all of that tarnished by what he's allegedly done is a shame. He's worked with countless artists. We talked about Britney Spears, he's worked with Toni Braxton and Janet Jackson and just loads of different people. And I think to have all of that, scrubbed and thrown away is a shame for him, and it's also a shame for music as well, because like I said, he contributed a lot. But like I said, within myself, I just cannot bring myself to kind of listen to his music. Now, I think it's a shame because for a number of different reasons, we're missing out on different artists when they could potentially be, positively impacting the music culture. There's a lot of people that have kind of been dragged recently for different things, and really we need to start helping people, because I think what it comes down to, from my point of view, is there's sometimes when artists will continue to self-harm or self-destruct in front of us, and nothing's really done. They're dragged, and again, we'll go back to the whole Doja situation that's occurred over the weekend. I'm not going to comment on that, just because it's still evolving, and I like to kind of take a sit back and wait approach and see how it all plays out. But from what I can see, it seems like there's a lot of maybe misinformation out there. Maybe things have been confused, but on the flip side, I think from how it looks, it does appear that Doja's uncomfortable with herself, and she doesn't seem very happy with herself as well, which is a shame. So just say, for argument's sake, something was to happen, then the public outrage would turn to, someone should have done something. And we see it all the time with artists who are no longer with us, artists like Whitney Houston, Amy Winehouse. The conversation then becomes, rather than about the controversy and what they've said or what they've done, it then becomes more of a critique of the media and what people have said about them on social media, and is this acceptable? Well, we all know it's not acceptable to say certain things about somebody else, because everyone goes through different struggles and everyone goes through different things. And I think it's important that we reach out to those people to educate them and to actually make them feel included, and to try and help them better themselves. If they can't do that after that point, then fair enough. But at least as a general public, we've tried to do that. And I think that's really, really important, that we do allow people to kind of grow. Everybody doesn't know everything. My views, how I am today, may be different to how I was 10 years ago, may be different to how I was 20 years ago, and I imagine it is different, because as a person, forgetting about the artistry, as a person you grow and you evolve. And I think we need to allow people the opportunity to do that as well, before we just cancel them off. Let's get people help to deal with their issues. A lot of people nowadays are speaking out about mental health, and that seems to be a really big thing over the last 18 months or so. Let's continue to support people if they do come out and say they suffer with anxiety or depression or whatever it is. Let's try and help people. But I think we also need to really keep that same energy. So if you are going to cancel somebody, and it should be a personal decision, you shouldn't need to run onto Twitter or onto Instagram or to YouTube even to say you're going to cancel somebody. That's a personal decision based on your own values, your beliefs and your morals. So if you're going to do that, then keep that energy. You've got to do it wholeheartedly, and you've got to be all in. You can't follow them, you can't stream their music or buy their music or tweet them or anything like that, because all you're doing is giving power and giving energy to something that you genuinely don't believe in. And I think, like I said at the start of the video, that's where the lines get blurred between your actions and what you say. It does go both ways, by the way, this whole cancel culture and kind of people's perception of things, because you've got to also remember there's going to be certain artists who will go against their own morals when they get into the industry. They may be so focused on the money and the fame that, for example, they may be racist. And I'm not saying I know any of these people. I'm just using this as an example. Somebody could be racist. They may not come out and say that, because they're thinking, if I come out and say that I'm a racist, I'm going to lose 50, 75, maybe even 100% of my followers and supporters. And actually their end goal is to be famous, their end goal is to have money, or whatever their driving force is. It may not just be those two things. But you've got to understand that a lot of people may internalize things that we just don't know about. I'm sure there's plenty of racist artists that some of us might follow or listen to. Same with homophobia. There's loads. People have their own individual beliefs, but you've got to learn to separate the art from the artist, and that's the whole point of the video today. People sometimes are that hungry for fame, or to kind of achieve their objective, that they may have may start to overlook their own morals or start to change kind of their own views, or certainly from a public perception, so that they can reach a further goal in their career. And what you then tend to see happen as well is, once the artist starts to slowly unravel or slowly kind of reveal more about themselves, it starts to become apparent that something's not right here. You know, they are racist, or they're homophobic, or they're xenophobic, or whatever you want to say. So it goes both ways. You know, artists will try and pretend that they're one way when they're not. But on the flip side, we've got to then understand within us what we're willing to accept and obviously what we're not. So to kind of answer the question from the start of the video, I think you can separate the art from the artist. As I said, there's certainly plenty of things that people have done and said that haven't sat well with me. But, you know, I've given them the opportunity to grow, to learn. I've listened to their response, and we've kind of moved on. But then on the flip side, there are certain things that I just cannot accept. And that's a personal choice that you yourself are in charge of. And on that note, I'm going to end the video there. Thank you so much for listening. If you like the video, please give me a like, and also hit the subscribe button to be notified for when I next upload. And I'll speak to you guys next time. Bye.